What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indies Sports Tickets. Hope you're having a great day, no matter what you're doing, no matter how you're watching or listening. If you want to watch, you can check us out on YouTube at Indies Sports Ticket, or you can go over to Twitter. You can follow us at Ticket1430, and you can watch the live stream on Twitter as well. Good morning, beautiful people. I'm pumped up for today's show at 11:20. RJ Choppy from 105.3 The Fan in Dallas is going to join me. We're going to talk a little bit of football, because if you have someone on from Texas, you got to talk a little bit about football, and then we're going to preview the Mavs and Celtics NBA Finals. And yeah, got a nice little Top 10s Tuesday planned for today. Can't wait. Like I said, I'm excited for today's show. But with that being said, I have to open with Anthony Richardson, who went on the Pat McAfee show yesterday and said some interesting things. McAfee and those guys, they do interviews a little bit differently than other places do. It's not a bad thing. That's just the reality of the situation. But Pat McAfee asked the question that I think we all wanted to know. Is Anthony Richardson being coached on when to get out of bounds, when to slide, how to slide, all those things? Like, is he being quizzed on that? And here's Anthony Richardson's response to that question.
I mean, yeah, all the time. We watch film. He's like, okay, right here, this was smart. You got out of bounds. You got down right here. That was smart. And then it's like sometimes like, okay, cool. You might have to get extra yards sometimes, but it's just a matter of knowing when to do it and when not to do it.
That was Anthony Richardson talking about Coach Shane Steichen coaching him and walking him through when to slide, when to get out of bounds, which it's not surprising that he is like trying to help Anthony Richardson understand this. This is something that Jalen Hurts, formerly coached by Shane Steichen, didn't take the leap to be the guy that we know Jalen Hurts to be until he was coached by Shane Steichen. So it's not a surprise at all that Shane Steichen is helping Anthony Richardson process through when to slide, when to get out of bounds versus when to fight for extra yards. And it's nice to hear that this is happening. It's nice to know that the coaching staff here in Indianapolis understands that Anthony Richardson doesn't need to take a million hits, even if he does weigh a whopping 255 pounds, which sounds big, but he played at 250 last year. That's what he said on the Pat McAfee show yesterday on ESPN. Most of the time during the season, it's going to be important for Anthony Richardson to get down, right? Because he needs to stay healthy. The injury history is long, okay? Like, it's not quite a CVS receipt, but we're a couple injuries away from getting to that point when you go back to his days when he was at Florida and even going all the way back to high school. So most of the time, he needs to get down. He needs to slide. He needs to get out of bounds. But if he slides, if he gets out of bounds every time he runs, though, then you're missing out on part of why he was drafted. Okay, like, he wasn't just drafted because he has a big arm. Okay, he wasn't drafted because he's super accurate. Okay, like, a large part of why the Colts selected him with the 4th overall pick is because he is a truly athletic freak. Fast, big, obviously, the arm and stuff, that speaks for itself. But, like, there has to be an element of letting Anthony Richardson be Anthony Richardson, right? Like, I like what he said in his response about how there is a point of emphasis on getting down, but there's a balance to allowing Anthony Richardson to do things that only Anthony Richardson can do. For example, I'm going to equate it to basketball a little bit here. Steph Curry, like, you have to let him be Steph Curry. You have to let him take 35-foot pull-up threes from time to time, because that is part of what makes him Steph Curry. And I think that the same thing applies here for Anthony Richardson of, yes, most of the time he needs to get down and slide or get out of bounds or do something along those lines to protect himself, just like how most of the time Steph Curry needs to get to the rim or take, a 26-foot three as opposed to a 36-footer, right? So, like, that needs to happen most of the time. But from time to time, Steve Kerr has to give Steph Curry some leash to do things that only Steph Curry can do. That is the balance that the Colts need to find this year with Anthony Richardson. There needs to be some leash given to him where, in the red zone specifically, that's where I would like to see him be given some leash to make things happen, right? Because, look, every NFL game is close, and if we can score 7 points instead of 3, like, that's a huge leap. And so I would like to see him be given a little extra wiggle room in terms of trying to make things happen in the red zone, because that's the most important area of the field. So I like that there's a point of emphasis on Anthony Richardson sliding this year, but he doesn't need to slide every time. There needs to be a healthy balance. Now, McAfee and those guys, they asked Richardson a lot of how's your shoulder, all those types of things. And, that's great. Whatever. He's fine. I think he said he's like 95% of the way to being fully healthy, and which is great. Nice to hear that the rehab and stuff worked. Okay. Rehab's been an issue with some previous Colts quarterbacks, so nice, nice hearing that this actually worked. So in addition to that, though, they asked him about the Texans. And, there's been, I wouldn't say a lot of discussion, but, you'll hear people talk about how the Colts are being slept on and all those things, which is, fine, whatever. That's essentially what the question was. And I think part of that is there's such a focus on Houston and all the guys that they have and how they're bringing in Stephon Diggs and how they just extended Nico Collins and it's CJ Stroud year 2, who had a really good rookie season and all these things. So there's a lot of attention on them. And Anthony Richardson was asked, what's it like preparing for the season when there's basically no attention on you? Do you like where you're at? Here is Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson's response to that question.
Right where you want to be right now going into the year?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Everybody doesn't know it, but we know we got a squad. We know we got some guys on our team. We know everybody else is loading up and getting guys on their team, but we already got dogs on our team. We know what we're going to do. So only time can tell what's going to happen. So,
How's AD?
Nah, he's legit. He's legit.
That was Anthony Richardson talking about just the state of the team and what it's like coming into the season where most of the attention within the division is on, the Houston Texans, and that's where the attention is going to continue to be until the Colts actually do something positive, right? So when it comes to the Colts and expectations, I like the confidence in Anthony Richardson's response. But he said, quote, "We got some dogs." I don't know about that. I don't know if they, quote, have some dogs. It's a bit rich for me. Right now, they brought everybody back after going 9-8 last year. A team that went 9-8 last year is not a team filled with some dogs. That's not what they are. It's a team filled with good, solid players. Seriously, when you look across this Colts roster, right, and you look at the offensive line, you're like, that's a decently good offensive line. And then you look at the wide receiving group, and you're like, oh, that's a pretty good wide receiver group. If A.D. Mitchell is as good as what everybody's saying, if he's legit like Anthony Richardson is saying, then maybe the wide receiver group will be really good. I don't know, but yeah, they're fine. And then you look at Jonathan Taylor and the running back room as a whole, and you're like, Jonathan Taylor had that one great year where he won Offensive Player of the Year, and outside of that, he's been fine. And then you look at Anthony Richardson, and it's like a big old question mark. And then you go to the defensive side of the ball, and you're like, the defensive line's fine. If Latu's, as good as everyone's saying he's going to be, then maybe the offensive line will be above average. That's cool. How are the linebackers? Oh, they're fine. EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin, they're good players. And then you look at the secondary, and you're like, they're young, but if they improve, they should be fine. It's a lot of they're fine, they're solid, they're mediocre. And the record last year reflects that, because Gardner Minshew he's an average quarterback in the NFL at best, right? He's a career backup. That's what he's going to continue to be. So it's a lot of fine. They're mad. They're okay. That's not a team filled with some dogs, as Anthony Richardson said. That's a team filled with average players that is dependent on their quarterback. And if the Colts are going to make the playoffs, if the Colts are going to win 10 games, if the Colts are going to win the division like Dan wants them to, it's a bit much for me. I don't know about that. But if in order for any of those things to happen, Anthony Richardson has to play like a guy worthy of the 4th overall pick. That's really what this boils down to. Okay, if he can be that guy, if he can be a player worthy of the 4th overall pick, then this team's going to make the playoffs. This team may even win the division, because the division isn't that great. It's really not. I know people are excited about the Houston Texans, and I'm as just a casual football fan, I'm excited about the Houston Texans. I think they're going to be good this year, right? Like you win the division year one with a rookie coach and a rookie quarterback. The sky then feels like the limit. And then I look in Jacksonville, and I think they're going to be good this year because this is very much a prove it year in Jacksonville for both Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. So I think they're going to come out. They're going to be good. Their defense should be a little bit better as well. So I look at Jacksonville and I'm like, I think they're going to be pretty good. And then I look at the Titans and I'm like, you got a quarterback that completed 58% of his passes last year. I don't know, whatever. I'm not overly worried about what the Tennessee Titans are bringing to the table. And then we look in Indianapolis, and there's, it's such a weird team because it feels like, last year you're a Gardner Minshew good thrown ball away from winning the division, not just making the playoffs, winning the division, hosting a home playoff game. You're, a drop pass or a good throw, however you want to look at it. You were one play away from winning the division last year. And this is a team that feels like if they won the division, like I wouldn't be overly surprised. But if they finished third in the division, I wouldn't be surprised either. And part of that is because I think Jacksonville's going to be good, and part of that is because I think Houston's going to continue to be good. But the volatility of results this year are going to be directly dependent upon Anthony Richardson. All of the offseason moves have been signs of faith in Anthony Richardson. Like they went and got 40-year-old Joe Flacco as the backup. Like they didn't trade for Justin Fields. They didn't bring in Zach Wilson. They didn't bring in a potentially young guy who could take over if things went really sideways. It's like there is faith in the building in Anthony Richardson, as there should be. If there wasn't, I would be really concerned. I would be concerned if there wasn't any faith in Anthony Richardson, considering he was taken with the 4th overall pick a couple of years ago. And look, he's got to stay healthy. Like that is, the biggest thing for this season. If he goes down in week 5, I know Joe Flacco's won a Super Bowl. I know he put together some magic and he got the Browns to the playoffs last year as, the 5th guy that played quarterback for that team. You can't speak highly enough of the job that Kevin Stefanski did for that Browns team last year. But look, like there's a reason why Joe Flacco wasn't on a team last year. Like there is. There's a reason why he was sitting at home on his couch waiting by his phone for somebody to call him. If we get, 3, 4, 5, 6 games into the season and Richardson's going to miss, 4 games because he, got a concussion or he, sprained his ankle or he got rolled, like whatever it is, then we're in trouble. So going to be interesting to see how they manage him, especially the running stuff. Because, once again, I hit on this, 8 minutes ago or whatever it was. But there's got to be a healthy balance to allowing Anthony Richardson to be himself and do the things that only Anthony Richardson can do. But there also has to be a balance of, dude, like, we need you for the long haul, right? We need you for all 17 games because, in essence, like every game is going to be important for the Colts this year. Like they can't afford to give any games away. Whereas the Chiefs, look, they're the Chiefs. They have Mahomes. If they lose a game to the Patriots in December, I'm not going to freak out. But it's fine. They have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I've seen these guys do it. If they give away a game, like 1 or 2 games a year, that's fine. Like I know they're going to bounce back, and I know that they're going to win, 11 games, and they'll be fine. And then when the playoffs start, you're not going to want to see them, right? Like they've earned that respect, and they have the talent on their roster where if they give a game or 2 away, like they'll be fine. The Colts don't have that. Like they have to win every game that they should win in order for them to make the playoffs or win the division. Like they've got to figure out some way to be consistent and to win the ones that they're supposed to. Because if they drop a game that they should win, that could be the difference between them making the playoffs and not. That could be the difference between them winning the division and not. And that is why Anthony Richardson's health is so important this year. And that's why it's going to be interesting to see how they handle the run game with the quarterback, because Look, if they ran QB power on 3rd and 1, like I wouldn't be upset at the call considering Anthony Richardson's 255 pounds. But at the same time, I would be because of the injury history. So going to be interesting to see how the Colts try to balance that throughout the season. If Anthony Richardson ends up being as good as everyone keeps on saying that he is, then maybe he ends up in the Ring of Honor one day, like Dallas Clark. He's going to be the guy going into the Colts Ring of Honor this year. I'm going to talk about that when we come back here in about 4 minutes, and that's going to lead us into Top 10 Tuesday. Can't wait to get into all of that here in about 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Hope you're having a great day. I'm doing the show sitting down today, which I usually do it standing up. I hit legs yesterday, and my hamstrings are tight, man. So I'm just, we're just going to sit down. We're going to relax. We're going to continue to talk more Colts football. Dallas Clark is going into the Colts Ring of Honor this year. I got to be honest. I don't know how the Colts Ring of Honor thing works, but seems to me like a guy like Dallas Clark should have been in the Colts Ring of Honor a long time ago. Dallas Clark is one of my favorite Colts ever. Okay, so I did not grow up a Colts fan. I grew up just south of Nashville, Tennessee. So you're like, Jonathan, are you a Titans fan? No, I'm a Miami Dolphins fan. But my older brother, Caleb, he grew up a huge Colts fan. So we watched the Colts a lot growing up, and in large part of that was because my brother wanted to watch the Colts, right? Because they were good. They were on in prime time a lot because of Peyton Manning, and they were competing for Super Bowls and those things when I was growing up. And so because of that, we watched the Colts play, or I watched the Colts play a lot of football growing up. And Dallas Clark always stuck out. Always. He was tough, very much played football at Iowa. Okay, was a bit of an anomaly when it came to tight ends at that time. Like at that time, they were very much viewed as guys that came in and blocked. And Dallas Clark, he blocked, but he wasn't a blocking tight end. He was a receiving tight end. He was tough, and to be quite frank, like he was one of the best receiving tight ends when he was in the league in 07, 08, and 09. Those were the peak years of his career. During those 3 years, he was the best tight end in the NFL, and I don't think that that's hyperbole. He was truly dominant and transcendent at that position. And whenever I think back on athletes, especially older athletes, I like to compare them to how we play the sport today. And so whenever I think about Dallas Clark, I think he would have been better in today's NFL because teams throw the ball to their tight ends a lot more. Teams look for tight ends in the NFL draft. Kyle Pitts was a top 5 pick a few years ago. We saw, what's his face out of Georgia. He was a top 15 pick this year. Like tight ends are becoming more and more important, and they're becoming more and more skilled. And because of that, teams want them. Like teams want good, strong, dominant tight ends that can, add another layer to their passing game. Okay. And I think that in today's NFL, Dallas Clark would have been better because teams throw the ball to their tight ends a lot more than what they did. And that brings us to Top 10 Tuesday. Now, I'm going to try to do this every Tuesday because I love doing this, and lists are always fun. So today, my Top 10 Tuesday is these are the 10 players that would be better today than they were in the past when they played. I have a couple of honorable mentions because, I made the list, and when I make my list originally, I send them out to some of my buddies, and they send back like, what about this guy? What about this guy? Just to make sure that I didn't miss anybody. So honorable mention number 1 is going to be Devin Hester. Devin Hester, when we think about his career, he, obviously all the return stuff, pops, right? The punt returns and the kickoff returns, right? Like I remember him returning, I believe it was the opening kickoff in the Super Bowl against the Colts back in 2006, right? Like that stuff would have been the same, but I think that if he played in today's game, he would have been a truly special receiver. Okay. And when I think about him, I think about Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was drafted in the 5th round as a return specialist, like how Devin Hester was. But Tyreek Hill was so explosive coming out of college that Andy Reid just found a place for him in the offense. And NFL teams, I think, would have done the same thing today for Devin Hester that they did for Tyreek Hill. Yeah, like they would have looked at Devin Hester and how explosive he was, and they would have been like, we're going to figure out some way to put the football in this guy's hands outside of just returning kicks. Like he's one of the most explosive players in the history of the NFL. For his career, he averaged 12 yards a touch from scrimmage. That's every time he touched the ball on average, he was going to pick up a first down. Okay, when he got the ball, good things tended to happen. The issue is he just didn't get the ball that often from just a normal offensive standpoint. Teams today, I think, would have figured out a way to scheme him into the offense a little bit more because offenses are just more creative now than what they were back in, the early 2000s. So, he probably would have been schemed in through, like screens and reverses and things like that. And I think he really would have struck some fear into the hearts of every defensive coordinator in the NFL, and obviously every special teams coordinator as well. So honorable mention, Devin Hester. One more honorable mention, Reggie Miller would have been awesome in today's NBA. The 3-point shooting would have translated. He would have taken more threes. He'd have been, the guy that he was back then, just in a more modern times. Like, he would have found a lot of success. So those are my two honorable mentions for my top 10 Tuesday players that would be better today than they were back then, because over, the course of time, like, sports evolve. That's just what happens. NFL teams throw balls to their tight ends more. NFL teams throw the ball more in general, right? Like looking at the NFL in 2024 and just going back a decade to 2014, the league looks very different than what it did. And the NBA has changed a lot over the past 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, so on and so forth. Baseball has changed. That's right. I've got a baseball player on here. I didn't think I would, because baseball's, for the most part, it's pretty similar, right? Run, throw, and hit. I haven't really changed outside of that, but we got it going. I'm excited about this list. So let's start at number 10. Top 10 Tuesday for players that would be better today than they were when they played. Number 10, Peja Stojakovic, 6'10", shot 40% from three for his career. He would have been an absolute weapon in today's NBA game. Okay, the league now, it's all about big, tall, long guys who can shoot the basketball. Okay, like, you can't play in the NBA anymore if you can't shoot. Okay, and the guys that can't shoot are 7-footers that are really athletic. Think Daniel Gafford. Think Isaiah Jackson of the Pacers. Like, those are the guys that can't shoot. But if you can, like, they're going to find a place for you somewhere. And Peja would have been great. He was great on those Sacramento Kings teams. Won a championship in his final year in the league playing for Dallas. So he's a guy that I think 1,000% would have translated to the league now, and he would have been much better just because of the era of basketball that we're in, where shooting is everything. Same thing applies to who I have at number 9, Steve Nash. He was a career 43% three-point shooter. Okay, Steve Nash is awesome. Love Steve Nash, okay? And if you watch TJ McConnell, he clearly loves Steve Nash too. There's a lot of similarities in terms of the way that they navigate the baseline, but that's, I can talk about that another time. Steve Nash only took 10 shots a game for his career, and only 3 of those were three-point attempts. Like, he was such a pass-first guy, and that just wouldn't have happened today. Okay, like his shooting numbers would have been way up. Like, coaches would have demanded for him to take so many more shots because he was an incredible shooter. Like when we think of Steve Nash, I think the first thing that we think about is the passing, right? But that's because he didn't shoot the ball a ton, right? He was very much a table setter for guys like Amari Stoudemire, okay? So, if he plays in today's game, he's easily a 20 points per game for his career guy. He's sitting at about 14 and a half now. Like, in the modern NBA, Steve Nash would have been more aggressive, and that would have improved his career numbers, and his impact on games would have been greater than what it already was. Number 8, Arvydas Sabonis. What team doesn't love a passing center from Europe? In today's game, like, he's one of the best passing centers ever. And he was a decently good shooter. I think if the three-point shot had been as big of a deal as it is now, I think he would have turned into a good three-point shooter. Like, when Arvydas Sabonis played, a lot of shots from big guys were taken in the lane. He was a guy who would step out into the mid-range and shoot it decently well. Okay, and let's look at the NBA now. The NBA has plenty of big European dudes that can pass the crap out of the ball. Think his son, Sabonis, who's having a great continued career in Sacramento after being a good player here in Indianapolis. Obviously, Jokic jumps off the page, and Arvydas Sabonis has a very similar skill set to those guys, with the ability to pass the ball and the ability to knock down a mid-range jump shot. He was also huge. He was 7'3", 280 pounds. I made a mistake. On Friday, I did a Fun List Friday where I highlighted the top chubby white athletes of all time. Arvydas Sabonis should have been on that list. That's on me. That's a mistake on my part. But Arvydas Sabonis would have been much better in today's NBA than what he was when he played back in the day. Also, if you have any recommendations for this Top 10 Tuesday, feel free to send them my way. Hop on the YouTube chat, just search for Indy Sports Ticket, and I should pop up. You can throw them in there. Otter Creek threw out a couple. Chris Jackson, Mohamed Abdul Rauf, I think that's how you pronounce that. a big guy who used to be able to shoot it well in the NBA. So if you have recommendations, you can drop them there, or you can tweet at me on Twitter at __ Jonathan Smith, and you can send them my way. Number 7 for players that would be better today than what they were back when they played. Marshall Faulk, great running back, one of the best that we've ever seen. But the thing that really popped about Marshall Faulk, especially when he played for the Rams, was how well he could catch the ball out of the backfield. And that has been more of a movement in recent years with players like Christian McCaffrey. Okay, like having guys that can catch the ball out of the backfield can just, they can elevate your offense. Faulk had 5 straight seasons where he caught 80 balls or more out of the backfield as a running back. Like, that's nuts. That doesn't happen in today's NFL, and we throw the ball more than ever. Okay, one of those years in 1999, Faulk had over 1,000 receiving yards. Like, that is a skill that NFL teams want their running backs to have now. It's part of why Bijan Robinson went number 8 overall to the Falcons 2 years ago. It's part of why he was so impactful as a rookie, right? Same thing with Gibbs in Detroit. Like, NFL teams want their running backs to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield, and Marshall Faulk could do that, and that is a skill set that would be utilized even more now than what it was back when he was playing for the Rams. So he was great on the ground, and he definitely would have been an every down back, but that production on third down would have been great. And finding out now that the radio air is dead, that's not good. That means I can curse now. That's not fun. So, okay, let me get engineering on that. But the show goes on here on the live stream. Thanks to everybody who's tuning in on here on the live stream. Yeah, so I can't multitask, which is an issue when I'm doing radio and I need to text people. So anyway, that was number 7, Marshall Faulk, once again, doing Top 10 Tuesday, the top players that would be better today than they were when they actually played. Number 6, Steve Young. Okay, Steve Young, like, his legs, I think, would be utilized way more today than they were in the 80s and 90s. Steve Young was an athletic quarterback in a time where you didn't have to be athletic. Like, you could be as stiff as a pole, and they were going to put you back there and be like, offensive line block. Now, teams want their quarterbacks to be athletic. Dare I say, you can't play quarterback in the NFL unless you're athletic, and there's multiple reasons for that. They've cut down on, how often you can do these, like, padded practices and things of that nature. But, like, because of that, like, offensive lines just don't block as well as they used to. Steve Young and a modern offense, I also think, just would have complemented his ability to run a little bit more, because that's just an element of the NFL now that seems like every team has. So Steve Young at 6. Number 5. I probably should have put this guy a little bit higher than what I did. Number 5, I put Pistol Pete. Pistol Pete would have been unreal. He would have been awesome in today's NBA. He could do everything at a much higher level than everyone that he played against. He was just weird, didn't gel with teammates because of that. So, he played it in the league when there was a 3-point line his last 3 years. Okay, so those last 3 years, there was a 3-point line, and he shot 75% from 3, which is absurd. Now, obviously, he wasn't taking a ton of threes because of the era, but today, like, he would have, and he would have been just a great shooter in today's NBA. The handle was sick. He could pass the ball. I'll never forget reading his biography way back in the day. And, like, he listed out, all these drills that his dad used to have him do, who was a great college basketball coach. I remember I would go out into my yard. I was like 11, and I would do all the drills that Pistol Pete did. And yeah, it didn't help me at all. I, was an average basketball player at best. So yeah, I mean, Pistol Pete, man, he would have been awesome in today's NBA. Number 4, Ricky Henderson, which I say that, and the question is, like, how could Ricky Henderson be better? Like, he stole, a million bases. Not really. He stole 1,406 bases. And it's like, how could he be better? And the essence of the list is, like, how have rules and the way that the game is played, like, how has that changed to where it would help some of these older guys? So, like, for Steve Young. Like he won a Super Bowl, was great in San Francisco. But because of the way that the game is played now and how teams throw the ball more, and it's more complementary to these quarterbacks that can run and move, like his numbers would have been better. I think he would have been held in higher regard if he played quarterback today. And with Ricky Henderson, it's like, Jonathan, he stole, 1,400 bases in his career. Like, how much better could he have really gotten? The bases in Major League Baseball today are bigger. They made them bigger 2 or 3 years ago. So the length between bases now, the base path is no longer 90 feet. It is 89 feet, right? Ricky Henderson stole 1,406 bases in his 25-year career. And when he got thrown out, it was close. You tell me he has to run a foot less, he would have stolen even more bases. Plus, we have the pitch clock now, which makes it easier to time your jump when you're on base. And Major League Baseball limits the number of times that you can pick off. They limit the number of times that you can throw over to first base. Can you imagine Ricky Henderson standing on first base? He knows that you have to throw the ball, in 20 seconds or less. He's tuned into you. You throw over once. That means you can't throw over again. He's taken the base. He would have stolen 1,500 bases if Ricky Henderson played baseball today, which is an idea that doesn't even feel real, but it's undoubtedly true. He would have stolen more bases if he played today. Oh my gosh, just love Ricky Henderson, just an incredible, incredible player. Number 3, Dallas Clark. If I'm making a list because of someone, then like they have to be on it. Dallas Clark, teams throw the ball now more than ever, right? That 07, 08, and 09, those 3 seasons, that was the peak of his career. He was the best tight end in the NFL those years. And I don't think that that's hyperbole. He and Peyton Manning were electric, right? If Clark hadn't been teammates with Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison, then his career numbers would have been even better, right? If he played in today's game, he'd be mentioned with the likes of, Travis Kelce and George Kittle and Mark Andrews and these guys. Like he would have been one of the best tight ends in all of football and a walking mismatch. Okay. Like just, he's awesome. He's awesome. Number 2, Michael Vick. He's the faster version of Lamar Jackson, right? Like he would have been otherworldly. He could throw the ball a mile. He pushed it down the field with just an absolute dynamite, with just an awesome arm that he has. So Michael Vick at 2. Number 1, Charles Barkley. He would have been a dominant small ball 5. Okay, I'll never forget. So growing up, I was a big John Stockton fan, in large part because of my dad. I'll never forget being, 13 or 14 years old, reading John Stockton's autobiography. And he talks about how he gets invited to try out for the 84 Olympic team. And, he's making it past all these cuts, and they're getting down to the end. And he said that Charles Barkley used to really upset Coach Knight because Charles Barkley would grab the rebound, take the ball coast to coast, and dunk it every time. And Coach Knight would have a fit, yelling at Charles Barkley to give the ball to the freaking point guard, and on and on and on. And Charles Barkley did not care. Charles Barkley in today's NBA would be so dominant because while the league's gotten bigger, it's also gotten a little more frail. Like guys are skinnier. They aren't as thick as they used to be. Like teams would have put Charles Barkley on the block as a small ball 5 and just absolutely dominated. They would have punished other teams whenever they decided to go small. And because of how athletic he was, he could play the 4, obviously, right? Like that's the position that he played. So Charles Barkley would have been awesome. Yeah. So he takes the number 1 spot for guys that would be better in today's game versus when they played. So that's going to do it for Top 10 Tuesday. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm going to get into the Mavericks and Celtics storylines because there's a lot of drama in this series just based off of how these teams know each other, a lot of crossover between players. So we're going to get into that here in about 4 minutes. What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Just wrapped up Top 10 Tuesday. Going to move a little bit now into the NBA Finals. Because let's be honest, the NBA Finals are the only real major sporting event going on. And, I can only do so much Colts OTA stuff. So we're going to be talking about this series throughout the week. It starts Thursday night. Kristaps Porzingis officially cleared. He will play Thursday night in Game 1 of the NBA Finals per Shams earlier this morning, really about 10 minutes ago. So big news there. I'm sure that there are some Celtics fans out there somewhere because let's just be honest here. There are Celtics fans everywhere, and we don't like any of y'all. So there's that. So yeah, Porzingis will be playing on Thursday night, which is a big deal because he is one of the major storylines in this series. Okay, like there's some drama here. Excuse me. So Kyrie Irving used to play for the Boston Celtics. This is very well documented. Okay, like Celtics fans hate Kyrie Irving because he took the microphone like last game of the year or at some point during the season. And he said, if you guys would have me, I would love to re-sign here next year. And then they looked up and Kyrie Irving was a Brooklyn Net. And then the Kyrie Irving weird saga began. Okay, and it was, a rough 2 or 3 years that really started with him leaving Boston. And so Boston fans do not like Kyrie Irving for that reason. He will be booed and booed and booed. And, guys are going to yell at him, from courtside seats. And it's going to be intriguing tuning in and listening or watching, Kyrie Irving and how he interacts with these fans in Boston. He says that he's grown and he's matured since then, but look, when you're in a competitive environment and people are yelling at you and talking trash for something that happened years ago, like that can trigger something in you to play a little bit harder. So that's going to be so interesting. I cannot wait to watch how Kyrie is greeted in Boston because it's going to be a lot of boos. I don't think that they're going to throw batteries at him like Cleveland people did to the Heatles back in 2011, but there's going to be a lot of hostility there. And then for Dallas, it's like, where's the drama here? Kristaps Porzingis used to play for the Dallas Mavericks. And look, it was not great. That's when Rick Carlisle was still there. They made the playoffs, but they weren't great and never really went the way that people wanted it to. And a lot of that was because of Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps Porzingis admittedly quit in the middle of a playoff series against the Clippers. And Luka doesn't like him. That's what everybody's saying, which doesn't bode well for Boston. And Chandler Parsons thinks that Dallas fans don't like him either. Here is Chandler Parsons, who played for the Mavs once upon a time, talking about the reception that Porzingis will receive coming back to Dallas.
It will be way more, violent towards Kyrie Irving in Boston, no doubt. But don't get it twisted. They do not like Porzingis in Dallas. Luka.
So you can speak to that.
Luka did not like playing with him. There is an actual beef there where it's going to be every time he touches the ball, he's getting booed.
Really?
And
there's a real beef there. Why?
Is that a scoop? No, I think that's known. I think it's known. It didn't work out. And Dallas, for whatever reason, those fans, they're proudful. They're like, if you're hurt, if you're not playing, if you're not doing what you were doing the years before you got to the Mavs, they don't like it. And
I feel like we don't know this because it wasn't loud like the Kyrie.
Well, it wasn't Kyrie stuff because again, like Lou just said, Porzingis is not Kyrie Irving, but there is a situation here. And I remember even when I would leave teams in the regular season, when you go back and play that team, you want to prove something. You want to show them what they're missing. The game has more juice to it. Now we're talking about the NBA Finals, and this is how it's matching up. So yeah, I think there definitely is more motivation for both these players. It'll definitely be more gnarly in Boston for Kyrie Irving, but I guarantee you Porzingis gets booed every time he touches.
Really?
Yes.
That was Chandler Parsons. He's got some show on FanDuel TV that he's a part of. That was him talking about how the Dallas fans are going to respond to Kristaps Porzingis. I gotta be honest, I don't think that's the case. Like, they may boo him when he comes out, but say that he's going to get booed every time he touches the ball. That feels a bit absurd because, let's be honest, like this happened a few years ago, and like it's Kristaps Porzingis. Like, it's not like this is LeBron James that left. Like, it's a good player, clearly a role player. The idea that he's going to get booed every single time, I don't really know about that. That seems a bit much. I hope they boo him. I hope the Celtics boo the crap out of Kyrie Irving. I hope they boo Luka. I hope they boo Jason Kidd. I hope they boo everybody. And then I hope Dallas Mavericks fans boo Porzingis, and I hope they boo, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and so on and so forth, because give me all the drama. Give me all of the drama. Speaking of drama, the WNBA, Angel Reese is back at it again. Angel Reese is delusional. I don't think there's another word for it. Listen to what Angel Reese said to Chicago reporters yesterday.
It all started from the national championship game, and I've been dealing with this for 2 years now. And understanding, negative things have probably been said about me, but honestly, I'll take that because look where women's basketball is. People are talking about women's basketball, but you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. People are pulling up to games. We got celebrities coming to games, sold out arenas, just because of one single game. And just looking at that, I'll take that role. I'll take the bad guy role, and I'll continue to take that on and be that for my teammates. And if I want to be that, and I know I'll go down in history, I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
No, we are not watching women's basketball because of you, Angel Reese. We're not. Okay, Angel Reese, we don't really care about you in terms of your basketball career. We don't. You were in the right place at the right time. That's what you were, Angel Reese. Okay, come on now. Okay, it doesn't matter that you were the person that Caitlin Clark played against in the national championship game. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No one cares about your career. No one cares about what you did at Maryland and at LSU. No one cares. Okay, Angel Reese. If Angel Reese was in the league and there was no Caitlin Clark, people would not watch. Wouldn't watch. They wouldn't care. I wouldn't be talking about it. No one would know who Angel Reese is. Okay? They wouldn't. And then Caitlin Clark shows up. This just incredible college basketball player, and she plays against Angel Reese, and she's just in the right place at the right time. That's part of how people become famous. They're just in the right place at the right time, and that's where Angel Reese was. She just so happened to be the best player on the team or on a team that beat Caitlin Clark in a national championship game. Okay, if Caitlin Clark wasn't in the league, no one would watch. Okay, and if Angel Reese wasn't in the league and Caitlin Clark was, everybody would still watch. Okay, these WNBA players are so incredibly ignorant to the fact that Caitlin Clark is why people are tuning in. We don't care about Sue Bird. We don't care about Diana Taurasi. We don't care about Angel Reese. We don't care about any of these women as basketball players. I don't care at all. And I'm willing to bet you don't care either. The writing is on the wall. It's so incredibly clear. It's so incredibly clear that Caitlin Clark is the ticket to having a better and more prominent WNBA. Just take the ticket and run with it. You gotta do what Charlie did. And Charlie in the chocolate factory. He finds the golden ticket. He grabs it. Two people offer him a lot of money for it, and he runs away. He's like, nah, I'm not. Nope. This is mine. We're going to run with it, and I'm going to make a whole lot of money because of it. That's what the WNBA players need to do. Okay, because people don't care about the WNBA aside from Caitlin Clark. Just listen to these numbers. So in Angel Reese's response there, in her delusional response, she highlights how they're having all these people show up at games and how there's celebrities showing up and all these different things. Okay. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 7 games played in the WNBA over the weekend that Caitlin Clark was not a part of. Here are the attendance for the non-Caitlin Clark WNBA games this past weekend. 7,600, 4,000, that's not very many, 9,800, 7,000, 3,200, less than 3,500 people showing up for some of these games, 10,000 at one of them, which is pretty good, and then 7,000. Caitlin Clark played 2 games over the weekend. 2. Here were the attendances at her 2 games. 17,271 people showed up to watch the Indiana Fever play against the Chicago Sky. And then 17,401 people showed up to watch the Fever play against the Liberty. we're showing up because of Caitlin Clark, not because of Angel Reese or Sabrina Ionescu, or however you say it. She was the #1 overall pick a couple years ago out of Oregon. She's the girl that shot against Steph Curry in the 3-point contest. Like, we're showing up because of Caitlin Clark. And speaking of Sabrina, she gave me just a real breath of fresh air. Okay, like she did. She was asked after the Liberty beat the Fever by 30 on Saturday. She was asked about Caitlin Clark only scoring 3 points. Here's what Sabrina Ionescu said. Quote, "They came off a back-to-back, so it's a little bit tough. But she'll figure it out. It's not that big of a deal to have a game like that." Oh, man. just breathe that in. It's so nice. Like, hey, somebody in the WNBA didn't crap all over Caitlin Clark. Just nice. That's just so nice. Because Sabrina's right. Like, Caitlin Clark just played a full season of college basketball. Deep run into the national championship game. Like, she played a ton of games in college, and now she's just flowing right into the WNBA season. Like, she's probably tired. She's out of gas. The Fever have played like 100 games in 50 days to start the season. Okay, like every time I look up, guess what? The Fever are playing. Like, she's just gassed. She's tired. I think that's part of why she's struggling. But it's just so nice to hear a WNBA player say something reasonable about Caitlin Clark. Like, it wasn't even the fact that it was, like a nice thing to say. It was just reasonable. It actually made sense. It wasn't a statement filled with delusion like what Angel Reese just said. Oh my gosh. Angel Reese, man. Angel Reese. We don't care. We don't care. Okay? Like, Angel Reese, you're in a bigger market. You're in Chicago, and people don't care about you. Okay? They care about Caitlin Clark, who's playing in Indiana. Okay? Like a smaller marketed team. Okay? So, there's that. When we come back here in about 5 minutes, top of the hour, we're going to head back, hit a little loop, go back to Anthony Richardson and some of the things that he said on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. Got that coming your way here in about 4 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Hope you're having a great day. Hour number 2 of the Real Jonathan Smith Show starts right now. Coming up here in 20 minutes, RJ Choppy of 105.3 The Fan in Dallas is going to join me. We're going to talk the NBA Finals, right? Get that nice, good Dallas perspective. Hopefully we can get somebody from Boston on tomorrow or Thursday. I got some things in the works. We'll see what ends up happening. Just finished talking about Angel Reese, is just how delusional she is when it comes to the WNBA, just how delusional these WNBA players are in general. So I'd like to move back into the world of reality, and I want to talk about the Colts. Anthony Richardson went on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. He did an interview with those guys. You know, they do interviews just a little bit differently than what I do. And, you know, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. We were able to manage to pull a couple of audio clips from that interview, though. And I'm so glad that Pat McAfee asked, I think the question that we all want an answer to, is Anthony Richardson going to slide this year? Is he going to get out of bounds? Is he going to try to protect himself? Is Shane Steichen taking any sort of steps to make sure that that happens? And so Anthony Richardson, Colts quarterback, was asked about that specific thing yesterday on the Pat McAfee show. Here is the Colts quarterback's response.
I mean, yeah, all the time. You know, we watch film. He's like, okay, right here, you know, this was smart. You got out of bounds. You know, you got down right here. That was smart. And then it's like sometimes it's like, okay, cool. You know, you might have to get extra yards sometimes, but it's just a matter of knowing when to do it, when not to do it.
That was Anthony Richardson on how he's being coached to slide. And it's a really interesting push and pull when it comes to, should Anthony Richardson slide? Should he not slide? Should he change his style of play? Because, you know, he was asked that earlier in the year, and Anthony Richardson comes out and he's like, no, I'm not going to change my style of play. I'm going to continue to be myself, which is a little concerning. But at the same time, like, he has a point of there needs to be a balance of when Anthony Richardson slides versus when Anthony Richardson does not slide, right? Because he's a special athlete. Now, with that being said, most of the time, it's going to be important for Anthony Richardson to get down because he is the franchise, right? Every move the Colts have made this year have just put more and more weight on his shoulders, right? They brought back everybody from last year, which tells us that they think that Anthony Richardson playing is going to be the difference between not making the playoffs and making the playoffs, or potentially even winning the division, right? They were one play away last year from winning the division. So I am intrigued to see how they go about doing that. How much are they going to use Anthony Richardson in the run game, right? Because, like, there has to be some sort of level of allowing Anthony Richardson to be this freakishly athletic player, because that's what he is. Like, that's part of why the Colts drafted him. They didn't draft him, you know, because he threw for 5,000 yards in a season in Florida. It's not why they drafted him, okay? They thought there was upside with his ability to throw the football, and they were like, wow, this dude is an absolute specimen. Okay, he's 6'4", you know, he's weighing in at 255 pounds right now. You know, he runs really fast, and, you know, he just checks all these physical boxes. He has all the tools and then some, right? Because you don't need your quarterback to run, you know, a 4.5 or whatever Anthony Richardson runs. Okay, so he's this explosive athlete, and he needs to be given a little bit of leash to go and be that explosive athlete while still understanding the importance of getting down and not getting hurt. Because, look, a large part of why the Colts didn't make the playoffs last year is because their starting quarterback got hurt. He only played in 12 quarters last year. That can't happen. Okay, we need Anthony Richardson to play in every single quarter, right? Especially at the end of the year. So that is going to be important, and he needs to be given some leash because that's part of who he is. That's part of why he was drafted. Okay, great players have to be given room to be great. Okay, for example, Steph Curry in Steve Kerr's offense, he is given room to pull up from 35 feet at specific points in the game, right? Now, Steph Curry, obviously, there's way more trust with him to not do stupid things because he's been in the league for over a decade, whereas with Anthony Richardson, it's like, this is year 2. You haven't played a ton. We don't trust you, you know, to be smart all the time because let's be honest, like as a 24-year-old, like we can be dumb sometimes. We can. That is just the reality that we live in when it comes to the way that we act and the way that we think. Okay, like I do dumb things all the time. Just ask my wife, but still, like Anthony Richardson needs to be given room to be who he is. Okay, and I like what he said in his response. Like there's this point of emphasis on getting down, but there is a balance in how there are moments where Steichen is like, you did the right thing here in fighting for extra yards, because sometimes it's going to be 3rd and 7 and Anthony Richardson is going to get hit, when he's a yard away from the sticks. In those moments, I want to see him finish the run and pick up the first down. Okay, when the Colts are in the red zone, like I want to see him lower his shoulder and get across the goal line, right? Like it's those moments where he needs to be allowed to be the freak athlete that he is. Okay, that is what Anthony Richardson needs. And another thing that I'm glad that Anthony Richardson currently has is outside of Indianapolis, right? Because I think there's a lot of focus. There's no think about it. There is a lot of focus on Anthony Richardson. There is a lot of pressure on him from me and Dan. That's really it. The rest of the world is just like, he'll be fine. He's being slept on. All that fun stuff. So there's a lot of pressure from this radio station on Anthony Richardson to be good. Outside of that, though, like they're kind of flying under the radar. And Anthony Richardson was asked about that because, their counterpart, the Houston Texans, a division rival, like they're kind of the team that people are excited for. And Anthony Richardson was asked, like, what's it like preparing for a season when, you're not that guy? Do you like the spot that you're in? Here is Anthony Richardson's response.
Right where you want to be right now going into the year?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Everybody doesn't know it, but we know we got a squad. We know we got some guys on our team. We know everybody else is loading up and getting guys on their team, but we already got dogs on our team. We know what we're going to do. So only time can tell what's going to happen. So,
How's AD?
Nah, he's legit. He's legit.
Anthony Richardson, we got some dogs on our team. We got some dogs. We got such good dogs that they went 9-8 without me last year. Those are some dogs right there. Average. Jeez. Oh my gosh. Look, I like the confidence. I think it's important. He said what you're supposed to say. Okay, like when you could be the quarterback for you could be Bryce Young. Okay, if somebody asks Bryce Young, about his team and how they're under the radar, like how do you feel about your guys? Bryce Young has to say, we got good players in our locker room. You have to say it because you can't go on national TV. Okay, you can't go on the Pat McAfee show, be asked if the guys on your team are essentially good or not, and they'd be like, they're okay, they're average, they're mediocre. You can't say that. Like you have to say something positive about your teammates when you go on national TV. That's just the way that the game is played. And I like the confidence in his response. But maybe just say, we've got some good players on our team as opposed to, quote, we got some dogs. Because, look, they brought everybody back last year. All those, quote, unquote, dogs in that Colts locker room went 9-8 last year. Okay, that is not a team filled with some dogs. That is a team filled with, Michael Pittman's a good player. Jonathan Taylor had one outstanding season. Outside of that, he's been fine. Like that's what this roster is filled with. Like Leatu Latu, maybe he pops, maybe AD Mitchell pops, but as of right now, there's no legitimate star that demands people's attention. And that is that's who the dogs are. Like the dogs in the NFL are dudes that demand people's attention. And the Colts don't have that. They have a lot of he's fine, he's good, he's pretty average. They could upgrade there, but there's also plenty of players that would be a downgrade. So there's a lot of just average mediocreness on this Indianapolis Colts team. And once again, I like the confidence of his response, but this team is not filled with some dogs. It's filled with average players. Okay. And if Anthony Richardson is a guy worthy of the 4th overall selection, then he should be a dog. And if he's a dog, because look, if you have a dog at quarterback, if you have a Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Justin, maybe not Justin Herbert, but if you have a legitimate dude, a dog, quote unquote, as Anthony Richardson says, then you can win a lot of games and you can make the playoffs and you can win this, quite frankly, bad division, because that's what the Colts play in. They play in a bad division. So if Anthony Richardson ends up being a dude worthy of being the 4th overall pick, then this is a playoff team, undoubtedly, because this division's bad. If Anthony Richardson ends up being the dude that, that usually get drafted at number 4 overall, then this Colts team is a team that could probably win the division. Okay, if he's the guy, if he can stay on the field and he does all the things that we want him to as, the 4th overall pick 2 years ago. Now, to be fair, there are going to be some rough spots. There are going to be some bumps in the road, considering he's only played in 12 quarters. But after the first couple games, it's got to click. It has to at some point. And, the flashes that we saw from him in the games that he did play, he was good. The Rams game is the game that people keep going back to. They go to overtime with a team that made the playoffs, had a chance to win it late, but couldn't. It's going to be intriguing to see how he performs this year. Okay, like this is, I'm not going to say this is the year for Anthony Richardson, because once again, he's barely played, and the more you do something, the better you get at it. Learning that right now. The more I do this radio show, the better I get at it. The more I interview people, the better I seem to get at it, because you figure small things out, right? Because you can practice as much as you want. But here's the truth. There's nothing like the real thing. There's nothing like it. Okay, like in Anthony Richardson's case, with the way that the NFL is structured now, you don't have that many real practices. You only have so many padded practices, and those go down every single year. Like you have to actually get out on the field and do the real thing. And until you do, you're not really going to grow. You have to be put in spots that are tough and are hard. You do. You don't get better until that happens. And, Anthony Richardson, to start the season, he's going to be put in some tough spots, and that's going to be good for his growth and for the way that this team goes through the rest of the season. Because once again, this division isn't very good. Okay. The Titans, I don't think they're going to be very good, because I don't think Will Levis is very good. When it comes to Jacksonville, this is a prove it year down there. Doug Peterson's job is on the line. Trevor Lawrence hasn't gotten that big lucrative extension yet. I know he wants that money. I know you know that he wants that money. So he's in this prove it season where a potential contract extension is on the line. It has to happen for him at some point for Trevor Lawrence if he wants this money. So I think motivation in Jacksonville is going to be extremely high for the head coach and for that starting quarterback. So wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville took a step forward. Houston's the interesting thing. They're going to be great. Okay, if I had to, put money down today, gun to head, as Dan likes to say, I'm picking Houston to win this division. There's a lot of talent on that roster, okay, between Stroud, Stephon Diggs, and Nico Collins. They've got a good offensive coordinator. He's kind of the next young up-and-coming offensive coordinator that's going to get offered a head job here at some point. They're going to be good. D'Amico Ryans, their head coach, that's one of the best defensive minds in all of football. It is. All right, and you've got Will Anderson Jr., who missed, I think, 4 games last year. He was the number 3 overall pick, defensive end, edge rusher. He's another guy who's going to be coming along. This Houston team is going to be good, and I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if we saw the Jags make a decent leap forward, just because there's a lot of pressure down there. And, pressure causes people to crack sometimes, and other times it makes diamonds, right? That's what they tell me, at least. I don't know. I do radio. I don't do science, but that's where we're headed. This division is very winnable. Anthony Richardson just has to be the guy. That's where we're at. And he has to stay healthy. That's why the whole sliding thing is good to hear. Something else that's good to hear is that basketball returns on Thursday night. I can't wait. My wife was out of the house last night. She goes to this Bible study on Monday nights, and so I'm home alone. And usually I'm watching a game, Monday Night Football, some sort of basketball game. I'm doing something like that. And there was nothing available last night. That's not true. There was college baseball on, which, baseball is a great background sport. It's like I'm prepping for the show the next day, and then it's like, okay, like while I prep, I'm gonna put this on in the background because I can't work in complete silence. I don't know about you. Can't do it. Like I've got to have a podcast. I got to have a game going, just something along those lines. And so sitting down last night, I'm trying to figure out what the heck am I going to watch? And I landed on LSU and North Carolina. Great baseball game. Okay. Game went 10 innings. Love college baseball. But I am just so ready for the NBA Finals to start Thursday night. Full disclosure, Dallas Mavericks fan, trying to be as impartial as possible as I continue to talk about this series. And I've got RJ Choppy of 105.3 of The Fan in Dallas. He's joining me coming up here in 4 minutes to talk about that Dallas Mavericks and Boston Celtics series that's coming up here in 4 minutes.
Holiday World and Splash and Safari, our family loves you. But look, I'm trying to teach my kids there's nothing free in life. And then we get here and there's a lot that's free. Parking, sunscreen, soft drinks. We love water coasters like Mammoth, the new family coaster Good Gravy, and 500 drones lighting up the sky. But the whole ride home, all I hear is... free soft drinks, free parking, free sunscreen. Okay, I guess some things in life are free.
Get tickets today at holidayworld.com.
In America, the zip code you're born into can determine your future. If this baby was born a couple miles away, his chances of dropping out of school skyrocket. Born 5 miles farther, his chances of experiencing violent crime rise. But just one town over, his chances at a healthier life improve. At the Y, our programs help all kids thrive, no matter where they're from. Support your local Y at ymca.net/for-a-better-us.
Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for listening, no matter how you're listening. The radio feed's back up, so if you want to flip that dial back to 14:30 a.m., feel free to do that, or you can keep listening on the app, the YouTube, the Twitter live streams, wherever you want to listen. Joining me now from 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, it's RJ Choppy. He's been on the show once before. He called the Colts boring, which, you listeners love, so I had to bring him back to preview the Mavs and the Celtics. RJ, how you doing, man?
Doing well. I'm surprised that they actually like that I said that.
It's well, people here don't like Chris Ballard. He's been here for 8 years, hasn't won, a divisional title yet. And so it's like, how much longer are we going to keep this guy while we keep on losing? So that's kind of the feeling around here, which is, I'm with you. It's a little weird, but hey, who cares? So it's got to be just a great time to do radio in Dallas right now, because you've got this Cowboys drama, and obviously the Mavs are about to enter into the NBA Finals on Thursday. So I'm curious, are you guys covering the Mavs more down there, or the Cowboys not extending Dak, Micah, or CeeDee Lamb yet?
Oh, right now we're a lot of Mavericks. We have not touched on the Cowboys much at all. There's nothing really going on. I mean, they're in mini camp, but we're not covering mini camp the way we usually would. And we've slowly kind of gone away from covering mini camp just because it's not. There's a level of boredom to it. Plus, the Rangers. We're the flagship of the Rangers, so we're doing a lot of baseball, and we do a lot of non-sports stuff too during this off-season period of the NFL. So we've done much more Mavericks and Stars over the last several weeks than Cowboys. We haven't really done a whole heck of a lot of Cowboys since the draft. So it's been a strange offseason for sure.
Yeah, I forgot about the Stars. I forgot I thought that they were going to beat the Oilers. That's a topic for another time. I want to talk about the NBA Finals. I'm kind of upset that we're not starting until Thursday. It felt like the series should have started last night, but it is what it is, I guess. So Celtics fans clearly don't like Kyrie. I'm interested to see the reception that he gets in game one when they show up and play in Boston. But, Porzingis, he played for the Mavs. It wasn't a successful stint of his career, you could say.
Right.
And so do you think there's going to be any animosity towards Porzingis when Boston comes to Dallas to play?
Yeah, there will be. It won't be as much as Kyrie gets when he goes back to Boston. But, there's no doubt. I mean, the Mavs fans were disappointed in Porzingis. I think the difference is that, Boston fans, I think, truly dislike Kyrie. They think he quit. I think the Mavs fans are more just disappointed in Porzingis that it didn't work out. He was hurt a lot. That played into it. Him and Luka didn't really get along. It was a bad time. Like, it just wasn't the right fit. Other Mavs fans recognize that. It just wasn't the right fit. So, yeah, he's going to get booed, when he touches the ball. And I think a lot of it has to do if the Celtic fans don't boo Kyrie at all, I don't know that the Mavs fans will boo Porzingis a whole heck of a lot. They'll still boo him. But I think if the Celtic fans are absolutely merciless on Kyrie, then Mavs fans will take that out on Porzingis. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Dallas has one of the best home court advantages in the NBA, and it's not really talked about. Have you been to many Mavs games, especially on this run?
I've been to a few this year. I haven't gone to any of the playoff games yet. I had a chance to go to Game 4 and Game 3, and I wasn't able to go. But no, but yeah, during the regular season, I did. It's interesting. Like, it's in the playoffs. It's a really good crowd. In the regular season, it's different. It's it's not the same kind of crowd that you get in the postseason. Interestingly enough, I had the Mavericks are actually a better road team because I think Luka locks in more on the road. He relishes the idea of getting into it with other fans. So I think when you look at the Mavs and you take a pulse and they're going on the road, I think Luka and what he does on the road is a huge, huge deal and how that series is going to play. get if the Celtics go up there and, they come back here and they get a split in Dallas in games 3 and 4, I'm not going to be surprised at all. It wouldn't surprise me either. The Mavs get a split up there and we go back up there tied at 2.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. Once again, joined by RJ Choppy of 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. Luka's he's so unique in that way. And look, those Boston fans are obnoxious and annoying. I can't stand people from Boston in general, really. And so you just know there's going to be some loudmouth, probably like Dave Portnoy or someone sitting, courtside yelling at Luka. And this is going to be a game by game thing that I can't really wait to watch. But when it comes to Boston, what about their team scares you the most?
Well, they're deep. There's a lot of Boston that reminds me of the 2011 Mavericks, where they've got a top player who is, look, I mean, let's face it. 2011, LeBron James is the best player on the floor. He's the best player, right? He was the best player in the world.
Yeah.
And so he was better than Dirk. But Dirk was the best player on the floor in the finals. So I don't think that's really a question. But that Mavs team was just deeper. They were better. They were better than the Heat. And I think there's a similarity here. Boston is a lot like that Mavs team in 2011. They had a lot of vets. They had a lot of guys that could beat you in a lot of different ways. They had versatile defensive players. The Mavs trump card here is, they've got the best player in the world, or at least the best player on the floor in the series, Luka Doncic. So, and you could argue they have the second best player in the series if you wanted to with Kyrie. I think that's the scary thing for Boston, or for the Mavericks' perspective about Boston, is quite simply that they are just a very deep, loaded basketball team.
They are deep. They're, I was talking about it the other day. I was like, the Celtics have been the most complete team in the NBA all year. They've lost 20 games between the playoffs and the regular season, which puts them in elite company. But like you said, the Mavericks have the guy who should be the best player in the series and a guy who is highly competitive in Luka. The thing about that 2011 series, I grew up a Mavs fan, still am to a certain degree, and I love Dirk. And I remember watching that series, and there would be these moments where, LeBron just wasn't it didn't feel like he was really playing. He would kind of float. And I don't think that happens with Luka in this series because he's just on the ball so much on offense. Is he the only edge that the Mavs have in this series, or is there another area where you feel like the Mavs can outplay Boston?
Well, the Mavs also have Kyrie. Let's not, we can't forget about him, and he's been tremendous for them this year. And he's obviously a closer. I think the Mavs have two of the best closers in the game and a tremendous backcourt. One of the best offensive backcourts the game's seen in a long time. So that's an advantage the Mavs have. I also think down low, while the Celtics have an advantage of being able to draw Gafford and Lively out of the paint by using Horford and Porzingis, the Mavs have an advantage with guys down low from a more physicality standpoint. So they have that. I also think that the Celtics like to play drop coverage, drop defense, and the Mavs have kind of the recipe to beat that with those lobs over the top. They do have some advantages. Luke is the main one. Kyrie's another one. And then you've got some ancillary ones like, the ones I just mentioned.
Okay, that makes sense. Once again, joined by RJ Choppy of 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, talking NBA Finals. So as I've watched the Mavs run, Jaden Hardy has taken away these Tim Hardaway Jr.'s minutes, which is an interesting development. And just the Mavs now have, a third guy who can kind of handle the ball and initiate some offense. Has that surprised you at all? Because Hardy has just kind of come out of nowhere after not really playing against the Clippers in round one.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising that he's been getting minutes. We didn't know how they were going to do it. Hardaway has seemed to be. I mean, he's gotten lost. He's not really a part of the rotation anymore. And as to the Mav fans' happiness, they had been done with Tim Hardaway Jr. He does have the ability when he does hit his shots, to be like a kind of a spark. but he goes into far too many shooting slumps where he's not making anything, and it was a bad fit, kind of a hole in their roster. So yeah, there's no love lost between Mav fans and Tim Hardaway Jr. at this point.
Especially with his dad going on podcasts talking about how his son doesn't get the ball enough. I don't know if you've seen those clips or not, but every time I see him, I laugh. Speaking of Hardy and Hardaway Jr. and some of these role players, I think this is a big PJ Washington series in terms of like he has to play well on both ends if the Mavs are going to have any sort of chance. Because I'm assuming they're going to put Derrick Jones Jr. on Tatum, and they'll put PJ Washington on Jaylen Brown. He's kind of the role player that I'm watching for Dallas in this series. Is he the role player for Dallas that you think has to play well in order for them to win the series, or is there another guy that sticks out a little bit more kind of in that area?
Well, he's a big one. When he hits his threes, they're tough to beat. Defensively, he has his moments too. He could defend. So he's a long defender, so he's got some versatility to it. But if he's able to hit his shots from the outside, you really are going to struggle to beat this Mavs team. They're good enough at the top with Luka and Kyrie. They need someone every game, whether it's Derrick Jones Jr. or PJ Washington or Hardy, to really step up. And if it is PJ and he's able to do that, and he's able to hit his threes, they don't lose. I think they're undefeated when he hits 5 threes. So it's gonna be tough to beat him if he's on.
Joined by RJ Choppy of 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. So I think there's been a lot of attention on PJ Washington ever since the Mavs made that trade. But you could very well argue that Daniel Gafford has been a bigger acquisition in some ways. So what has Gafford really brought to this team? Because I feel like there's been a lot of attention on PJ and what he's brought on both ends of the floor, especially after the Thunder series where he just didn't miss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, PJ was they don't move on early on in the playoffs without PJ Washington. I mean, he scored damn near 30 points in back-to-back games. Luka was hobbled. But Gafford's been the better player throughout the time here. The more impactful one, at least. Like he allows them to have a big on the floor for 48 minutes. They can rotate him in and Lively in and out. You saw when Lively went down in Game 4. That was the only game they lost to Minnesota. The Mavs kind of struggled at times in that game. So this was it was a big pickup for them to get Gafford. I think he's clearly start to finish been the more impactful player. And PJ's had his moments for sure, but yeah, like Gafford has been the more underrated guy. When they made that pick for him, that pick up the trade, he was the guy that we were like, oh boy, that's a good pickup. Even though he's not really a household name, and we all knew PJ Washington from college and being in Charlotte, getting Gafford was big for them.
It really was, because like you said, it allowed them to have a big on the floor for a full 48 minutes. They cut the minutes basically in half between him and Lively, so they're able to play with this full effort the entire time. That being said, I prefer Lively just because he's just a much better passer, but that's not a super big deal when you've got Luka and Kyrie on your team. Who's your? I'm assuming, I don't know if you and Sean have made y'all's official picks yet, but who is your pick to win? Do you have Dallas or Boston?
We haven't. I keep going back and forth on this. I mean, I think Boston is the better basketball team. I'm probably going to wind up taking Celtics winning 6 or 7. I do think they're the better team. I bet the Mavs. I bet the Mavs to win the series. The value was just too high to say no to. It was I think I was like plus 185. So I bet the Mavs. I think it's more likely than not that Boston comes away victorious, though.
Yeah, I'm really torn. I'm trying not to be biased. I bet the Mavs at plus 2,400 to win the whole thing before the playoffs started, and that is clouding my judgment just slightly, because coming into the playoffs, it's there's kind of like this baseball feel of like the Mavs just kind of got hot, especially defensively at the end of the year. Like I believe the last 15 games of the year they were number 1 in defensive rating, and it's like, if they're going to defend like this, and I have Luka and Kyrie, like I don't know how you beat this team 4 times out of 7 games, and so I took them, and if that hits, I'm I've got some money to spend. So, RJ, thanks for your time, man. Best of luck to you. Hopefully, you can catch a game because I'm sure that Dallas crowd is going to be awesome.
Hope so, man. Thanks for having me.
You got it, man. Have a good one. See ya. That was RJ Choppy of 105.3 The Fan in Dallas talking NBA Finals. Knows his stuff. He's there. He's in Dallas. He's watched that team all year long. Can't wait. NBA Finals start Thursday night, 8:30, ABC, Mike Breen. And we're not even going to mention the other two people on the call because they aren't very good. Speaking of not very good, we're going to talk about Angel Reese when we come back here in about 4 minutes. What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indies Sports Tickets. Thanks for listening, no matter how you're listening, whether that's on YouTube. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, go to, pull up the website, search for Indies Sports Ticket, and we should be right there available to you to watch the live stream. You can also watch the live stream on Twitter. Just follow us at Ticket 1430, or you can download the Indie Sports Ticket app and listen through the app, or you can just listen on the radio. The old-fashioned way, as some may say. And things change all the time. All right, this summer, the WNBA has emerged as a topic, and I'm not complaining because it's July, and let's be honest, there's not always a ton of things to talk about. Like I can only talk about Colts minicamp so much during the season. And so having absurd delusional audio clips from these WNBA players is great. Here's Angel Reese being delusional.
It all started from the national championship game, and I've been dealing with this for 2 years now. And understanding, negative things have probably been said about me, but honestly, I'll take that because look where women's basketball is. People are talking about women's basketball, but you never would think that we'd be talking about women's basketball. People are pulling up to games. We got celebrities coming to games, sold out arenas, just because of one single game. And just looking at that, I'll take that role. I'll take the bad guy role, and I'll continue to take that on and be that for my teammates. And if I want to be that, and I know I'll go down in history, I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
No, it's because of one person. Don't get it twisted, Angel Reese. You were in the right place at the right time, and because of that, there's a lot of people who know who you are now. Congratulations. That's just kind of how fame works. Okay, if you end up in the right place at the right time, you can get your 15 minutes of fame. That's just the way things are, and that is what has happened to Angel Reese. She's let this, fame go to her head. Because, look, we all know that the only reason why people are paying attention to the WNBA is because of Caitlin Clark. No one cares about you, Angel Reese. We don't care about you. If you weren't in the league, if Angel Reese wasn't playing in the WNBA, people would still watch. If Caitlin Clark was not in the league, then no one would watch. It's truly that simple. Truly. It's incredible. These things aren't hard to figure out. And yet the people involved in them can't seem to figure it out. These WNBA players are so ignorant. They're ignorant. There's no other word really for it. And sorry, my boss he loves to just poke his head in and he'll give me a very aggressive thumbs up, you doing okay? And sometimes it throws me off my game a little bit. But like I was saying, Angel Reese, delusional. WNBA players are ignorant. They don't realize that we're here for Caitlin Clark, right? And through that, you can elevate the other stars in your game, but that's not what you're doing right now. The takeaway from all of these Caitlin Clark games should be, Caitlin Clark and, Angel Reese had a duel, just like they had back in the college days. And those things should lead to people being fans of the WNBA in general. But as long as you bully her and, you hit her when she's not looking and you elbow her in the face and you do all these things, all that you're doing is pushing people away from the game that you want people to watch, the game that you've been begging for people to watch since the league started. That's all you're doing. You're pushing people away from this thing that could potentially be entertaining. There are people I know people who have already stopped watching because of the way that Caitlin Clark is treated on the court. And not from obviously, I talked about this some yesterday. Obviously, they need to be competitive. They have to make Caitlin Clark earn her stripes, so to speak. That's part of being a rookie in any league, and that's part of being a rookie when you're highly anticipated entering the league. You have to earn your stripes because these older players, they're going to come at you, and that's what should happen. That's what happens in every sport. But, purposefully, bullying her, because that's what they're doing, purposefully body checking her. There are moments where it's are they trying to hurt Caitlin Clark? Because that would be the dumbest thing that they could do. Because once again, they're ignorant and delusional to the facts. Caitlin Clark is the golden ticket. Grab her, run with it, because people don't care about the WNBA aside from Caitlin Clark. Just listen to these attendance numbers from over the weekend. Here was the attendance at the games that Caitlin Clark did not play in. Okay, 7,638. I'm not going to give the team names because let's be honest, you don't know any of the teams. So one game, 7,600 people showed up. Only 4,000 people at another game. 9,800 at another game. Only 7,000 at another. 3,200 at another. 10,000 at one. That's pretty good. And then 7,000. And that's not a great turnout. And then you look at the attendance at Caitlin Clark games where teams are having to rent out larger stadiums because of her. 17,247 people were at Gamebridge Fieldhouse on Saturday at noon. They got up Saturday at noon and they went to a WNBA game. That wouldn't have happened last year. Definitely wouldn't have happened a decade ago. 17,000 people went to Gamebridge to watch Caitlin Clark play against the Chicago Sky. And then on Sunday, 17,401 people, almost 17,500 people showed up in New York to watch Caitlin Clark play against the Liberty. Do you know how many things there are to do in New York? Countless. Okay, it's the city that never sleeps because there are so many different things that you can do. And of all the things, of all the options of things to do in New York, people chose to dedicate their time to going and watching Caitlin Clark play basketball. She's why people are watching. Nothing else. Okay, and Sabrina Ionescu, I believe, or Ionescu, however you pronounce it. Just a real breath of fresh air. Okay, she was the number 1 overall pick for the Liberty going back a few years. She's a great player, can really shoot the rock. She, she's a good player. Really, no way around it. And she was asked after the game about Caitlin Clark and how she only scored 3 points. And here was Sabrina's quote. Quote, "They came off a back-to-back, so it's a little bit tough. But she'll figure it out. It's not that big of a deal to have a game like that." Thank you. Oh, my gosh. I need more quotes like this from WNBA players in my life. It's reasonable. It makes sense. There's no sense of delusion behind it. Okay, if you asked Angel Reese this question, why did Caitlin Clark only score 3 points after playing in a different city the night before? Angel Reese would have been like, because Caitlin Clark sucks. That's probably what she would have said, even though that's not true. And so it was just nice hearing a WNBA player say something that's not insanely stupid. It was really nice. Really, really nice. In other news, Larry Allen died yesterday, which is sad. He's one of the best athletes in the history of the NFL. Just one of the best athletes. Just insane. There's the clip where, whoever was playing, probably Aikman. When Aikman throws an interception, there's the clip of Larry Allen running this guy down, even though, he's like 6'6", 350 pounds, right? And then there's the clip of him benching 225 pounds, 41 times, just doing these absolutely absurd freak athlete things. He's one of the best offensive tackles in the history of the NFL, right? He's a Hall of Famer, 11-time Pro Bowler, just an absolute legend. He passed away yesterday at the age of 52, which is really sad. So prayers out to his family. Always tough losing people like that. Dallas Clark he's going into the Colts Ring of Honor this year. Dallas Clark is, he's one of my favorite Colts ever. Okay, I grew up a Miami Dolphins fan. With that being said, the Miami Dolphins were not very good growing up. I did not live in Miami, so we never watched them play. But the Colts were good. And my older brother grew up a Colts fan. So we watched the Colts a lot growing up because they were good. They were on in prime time, and my brother was like, I want to watch Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, and I want to make fun of Jonathan because the Dolphins suck and the Colts are really good. So that's what we did. And because they were good, we watched them. And I remember watching Dallas Clark, and he was awesome. He was everything that I think you expect for a tight end to be. He was tough, wasn't afraid to put his hand in the dirt like some of these tight ends are now. And, he would block. He wasn't the best blocker in the world, but he's one of the best receiving tight ends ever, right? He was, he was great, receiving the football. And, 2007, 2008, and 2009, those were the peak years of his career. And like in those years, he was the best tight end in the NFL. And I don't think that that's hyperbole. And he did that with, Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison on the team as well, right? Like Peyton Manning had no shortage of weapons on his team. And Dallas Clark stood out amongst, two great wide receivers. And, when I think about Dallas Clark, he joins this list of players that I think would be better today versus back when they played, just because of style of play and these things. And I did a big Top 10 Tuesday on this earlier. Video is going to be posted up on YouTube later, so make sure you go subscribe to Indy Sports Ticket. But he ended up being number 3 on the list because he would have been awesome in today's NFL. Like, teams throw the ball more now than they ever have before. Okay, 2007, 2008, and 2009. Like, once again, that was the peak. That was his peak. And, he was a 1,000-yard receiver one of those years. I believe that he notched over 100 receptions. Maybe not. But he and Peyton Manning were electric in those years. He was a walking mismatch, right? And, once again, if he doesn't play alongside Marvin Harrison, one of the, 5 best wide receivers of all time, like, his numbers would have been better. Like, they would have been, right? And if he played today, he would make a lot of money. Like, he'd be one of the best tight ends in the NFL. He'd be mentioned with, the likes of Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, and the rest of these dudes. Like, there are so many good tight ends in the NFL now, and Dallas Clark was a part of that era of receiving tight ends that kind of ushered in this new guard. Him and Antonio and Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates in San Diego. Like, he was part of that group that ushered in this new type of tight end into the NFL. And yeah, he was a special player, and he is well-deserved to go into the Ring of Honor. My only question is, why didn't this happen sooner? I don't know how the Ring of Honor stuff works, but should have happened earlier. Something else that should have happened earlier. The NBA Finals should have started last night. They should have. Okay, like, waiting till Thursday, ridiculous. Like, just move it up to Monday night. That way we can actually have something to watch. I played video games last night. Do you know the last time I sat down and really played video games? Then again, my wife wasn't home last night, so that's part of why this happened. But I sat down, after I finished my prep, and I was like, what am I gonna do? And yeah, I played video games for almost 2 hours. Just insane. Yeah, Mavs, Celtics. I needed to start. We have to wait till Thursday. My interview with RJ Choppy earlier, thought it went well. Thought he did a good job highlighting, just the major talking points of that series. The Kyrie Irving storyline with him going back to Boston. He's going to get booed. It's going to be relentless. This Mavs team has played really well on the road, and so going to be fun watching that game 1 on Thursday night. And then when they go back to Dallas for game 3 and 4, the reception of Kristaps Porzingis is going to be equally as interesting, right? Because the stint with Porzingis in Dallas was not great. Wasn't great. So that's going to be quite the storyline. Can't wait until that happens on Thursday night. For tomorrow's show, I know I've got Tony East. He's going to join me at 11:20. We'll probably talk a little bit of finals. We'll talk Caitlin Clark and just all the stuff, all the drama, all the crap going on in the WNBA. I'm sure we'll talk about the Angel Reese comment some more. I'm sure some other WNBA player will come out and say something stupid before 11:20 tomorrow. So we're locked and loaded, ready to discuss that as well. Thank you for tuning into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I've loved moving to 2 hours. The support from you guys has been really special, and I greatly appreciate you guys, tuning in and listening to my show. Things at the station are going well. Dan Dockett's show is going well. His show's coming up here in about 5 minutes. Just learned that, he's got one of the top podcasts throughout, our company as a whole, not just, here in Indy. So, for those of you who miss parts of his show and you go back and you record and you listen to that is greatly appreciated. Yeah, I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Tony East at 11:20, as he always is on Wednesdays. Coming up here in about 5 minutes, it's the Dan Dockett Show. I will talk to you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Make sure you leave that app on to listen to the Dan Dockett Show coming up here in about 5 minutes.